Hello, everybody. Welcome to the start of the Stato Joe podcast proper because I'm actually joined today by Luke. You no longer hate me. You no longer hate me.
I don't. I got over it. We settled our differences, and I'm back once again. Season 2, episode 2. Doesn't sound as good for me to
No,
start the second episode, but it's great to be here.
it was one of those things where you probably just heard 5 minutes of Thursday's podcast and you heard me say "for me" too much, and you were like, "I got to come in and save this guy. He's struggling out there by himself."
That's it. I
Dean,
thought I should draft
Dean,
myself back in after what was an absolute horrendous performance by Joe on his own. No, I'm joking. It was great, but it's always going to be better when the Enigma returns. Am I right?
100%. I mean, the banter will just flow unbelievably, which is obviously the important part of this podcast, and that's why you're here. So, for those people who don't know, this podcast and what we talk about is entirely dictated by you, the watchers. If you go and follow at StatoJ on Twitter, you will be directly influencing what we talk about. And the people of Twitter said that they wanted us to talk about Manchester United versus Leeds. So today's podcast will mainly be all about that game. A good opening weekend of Premier League football, though. Look, do you have any brief thoughts before we go into the game itself?
A superb opening weekend of football. Lots of goals going in, which we love to see. Lots of fans back in the stadiums, which we also love to see. A good weekend. Not quite as good as the Championship, obviously, but it was good to be back with the Premier League and watching some superb football.
Some stunning goals this weekend. There was just a highlights reel already of great goals and some great matches. And I spoke a lot about on Thursday about that top four race and how tight that's going to be. And we saw three of those four teams really step up and perform immediately. One of those teams, of course, being Manchester United, who started off Saturday not with the match, but with the unveiling of this man here, Raphael Varane. We knew it was coming, but a very old school way of announcing a signing, wasn't it? It was quite nice to see. It was enjoyable. I think he's going to be massive. I think he could really turn their defense around.
Yeah, I think it's a big signing. Messi then did exactly the same sort of thing with his presentation later on that evening. So United obviously wanted to one-up them. But yeah, I think he will be big. I think he's a very, very competent centre-back who's played at the highest level, winning the World Cup, winning Champions League after Champions League after Champions League, and playing comfortably at the heart of the Real Madrid defence. Real Madrid, not necessarily known for their good defense all the time. And so I am curious to see how he does. Curious to see how he does slotting in alongside Harry Maguire and just seeing how they get on. It'll be great. But it was a lovely way to present it. I think first game back properly in front of a full stadium. No better way to hype the crowd up before the game than to unveil a massive signing. The type of signing that they've been wanting for a long time. All they really needed now is maybe another centre midfielder, and United have a pretty well-rounded, complete team.
Yeah, I think at that stage he hadn't actually been officially announced. So that was the official announcement was him coming onto the pitch, which you don't really see anymore. So that was kind of cool. I think going back to where he fits into the team and the difference it could make, I think Harry Maguire is often let down by his centre-back partner. So he's often having to do the work, like maybe 1.5 times the work that he would expect to do in that position because his centre-back partner is not good enough. I think if Varane plays well, now obviously it's a big if, and we would expect that from Varane at the level that he's at, we could see what would appear to be a far more confident Harry Maguire, maybe a bigger and better leader. If he's allowed to get that space and room and play better with Varane beside him.
It's a really hard one to know because you look at Harry Maguire for England and he plays really well for England, but that's because he's playing alongside John Stones. Or is it? Is it because Gareth Southgate sets up in a very defensive manner? I don't think Solskjaer has the same defensive prowess as Gareth Southgate in terms of tactically. I'm not sure Solskjaer knows how best to tell his defenders to defend. And I don't know if Victor Lindelof is to blame. I don't know if it's his fault for why United's defense is shakier at times, and saying that Harry Maguire himself is playing like 2 times a defender. I don't know. It's really hard to tell because it doesn't change too much in the past whenever they've brought in other centre backs alongside Maguire. So it will be exciting to see that. It could go one of 2 ways. It could go really well. Varane and Maguire could be the best centre-back pairing in the Premier League because they're both very good defenders. Or it could just be more of the same because we then see that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't actually really know how to defend in a team. And they also don't have a defensive midfielder who's good enough, I don't think, to be in a title-winning side. So who knows what way it could go. And arguably, in the game on Saturday against Leeds, Harry Maguire was the worst of the 2 centre-backs.
That actually is a great point about Varane coming could expose Solskjaer's lack of defensive prowess, in that Lindelof, and I've probably done it here already, is probably an easy target to go after. Varane not so much because he's proven at another club. And what was really interesting to me was, if I just put up this United lineup, the players that are missing from this lineup before the game and the result that they got. So if we look at their team, De Gea started in nets. We had a back 4 of Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, McSauce and Fred in the holding area, Paul Pogba, Fernandes and Daniel James, and then Mason Greenwood up front. So there's already 3 players missing in the starting 11 from what you'd expect. So there's no Varane, obviously, no Cavani there, and no Sancho straight away.
No Rashford.
And no Rashford as well. Are the obvious 3/4 omissions from that team, and they went out and hammered Leeds 5-1. Are United a scary prospect when you think about the players that can come in based on what they have in that lineup?
It's so difficult to know because, when they all play together and they all click, yes, absolutely, it could work. But this is against Leeds, no harm to Leeds, but they're not good defensively and they never have been. Last season, they were good at going forward and trying to outscore their opponents. Brendan Rodgers, Liverpool 2013 or whatever style. But it's just not the way Leeds play, to sit back and defend. And so when you've got a Bruno Fernandes and a Pogba who are on form, and if they're playing well, then absolutely they could score even more against Leeds. Against a good side with a good defence, it's a completely different question. I thought Dan James obviously wouldn't normally start. I don't think he showed too much in this game. Wouldn't be scared of him if I was any other left back in the world. No. Mason Greenwood at times showed that he was decent, but he's not the finished product, and he's not the level of wonder kid that we come to see in the likes of a Haaland or an Mbappe. United fans, sorry, it's just the truth. And Paul Pogba starting on the left-hand side of a team, is that really where you want to play him? Not at all. Surely not. Surely you want them in the middle alongside somebody who's good defensively, just behind a Bruno Fernandes. And so I think that, yes, they've strengthened going forward with Sancho, which is great. I think that their biggest issue is, and has been for the last 5 years, somebody to sit alongside Pogba and actually give him defensive stability.
I think that's going to continue to be talked about if it doesn't get sorted. I think that not signing a CDM, you could argue that, I don't know. I was going to say, maybe a CDM would be more, if you were to buy one of Sancho or a CDM for United, it was probably more immediate for them to get a CDM than Sancho. Because
it's hard to know because United don't have much going forward. The fact that Dan James is their second choice, on that side shows that that's not great. Dan James has never been good enough, and no harm to him, will be good enough to play in a title.
He should be at a mid-table club. He should be at a Villa or something. He'd be great at one of those. Well, he won't go to Villa because Villa have signed 800 wingers, but
exactly. But then Pogba's playing left wing. Pogba's playing the left side of midfield shows that they're weak going forward. Yeah. And so Sancho being there is an option for.
I suppose Sancho's being available was part of it too. The fact he was actually available I suppose you take him, but I do think CDM's so important. I know Fred scored, right, but Fred and McTominay, I think time and time again have proven to struggle for United and often don't provide the stability that's needed in that team. I think if we just go quickly to the Leeds lineup before we go underway, sort of what you'd expect from Leeds, although Stuart Dallas started left back and was then moved into the midfield for the second half. So they had Meslier and Nets, Luke Ayling right back, Struijk and Liam Cooper centre back, Stuart Dallas left back, Koch in centre midfield. Then we had Rafinha on the right, Rodrigo and Click kind of in the attacking midfield positions. This banner's in the way. Is it Jack Harrison? Yeah, Jack Harrison on the left wing and Patrick Bamford up front. A pretty standard Leeds team. That team hasn't changed from last season. The one that I have up now, that's the same team that we'd come to expect from them.
Well, last to season. An extent, because Calvin Phillips obviously would usually be in there.
Yeah.
And Calvin Phillips offers a lot more than your Koch does. So it would be good to have Calvin Phillips back in. I also think it's a difficult one for them because Junior Firpo is good enough to start at left back. But who do you sacrifice from the team? Do you move Dallas into the middle? Potentially, because I don't see Bielsa ever dropping Stuart Dallas. It's not just a Northern Irish bias. It's the fact that Bielsa absolutely adores the man. But then you also can't really drop Luke Ayling because Luke Ayling's a good player. And so, it's fairly standard from Leeds. Expected it from them. If you're a long-time listener, you know I don't like Leeds. You know that I have no desire for them to do well. So this was delightful for me to see them set up this way and get absolutely smacked. I think there's a few good players going forward, and they are an exciting team to watch going forward. But I do still look at that defense of Struijk and Cooper, and Meslier is all right. But the three of them, they don't fill you with confidence. And anybody that attacks down the middle of their defense generally gets through. And that's an issue.
It's going to be the same this year as last year. I think in rugby, they talk about teams who just kind of throw the ball about and give it a go. It's called jouer rugby, right? And I think that Leeds play a bit of jouer football. You know, they just kind of go out and they're like, do your best, lads. Let's see what we can do. Ultimately, it's about being quick on the ball and kind of quick attacks. And it worked well at times. And there was that debate last season of Bielsa's the only manager that can be praised after losing 6-2, because obviously they were beaten by United 6-2 at Old Trafford, I think it was, last season. They've gone and shipped 5 goals again today, which in some ways almost isn't a surprise. It either works really well or it fails dramatically. And yes, it took United a while to score. I think it was it half an hour or something like that. But watching the highlights back reminded me that in that first half an hour, United had something like 7 or 8 shots. You know, Leeds were very, very open from the get-go. And you almost felt like it's going to come eventually. It's going to, United will eventually break that wall. And once they break the wall, Leeds will probably crumble at some stage and they'll get a couple. And that's exactly how this game went. But let's talk about that first half hour before the goal went in. And I personally felt, and we spoke about this yesterday when we saw each other separately, about how Pogba and Bruno looked like, for maybe the first time, probably they loved playing together. Like properly, like were totally enjoying themselves. Do you think that adds anything to the United game?
Absolutely, it does. I think what we saw yesterday with Pogba and Bruno is the closest to anything that United have come to seeing the relationship between Pogba and Kante. Obviously, it's different because it's more attacking, but could you imagine the three of them playing together? That would be a joyous affair for the players and for United fans. But I think Pogba, when he likes something, he'll let you know. And whenever he wants to be playing football, he'll show you that. And when Pogba turns up, United turn up. And so yesterday we saw a team in which Pogba decided he wanted to play football in the second half, and so did Bruno. And the two of them together just were a joy to watch. Their connection is obvious. They've clearly been working together in the training pitch over the last however long, and they look like a really good pair. If you can get them firing on all cylinders in the middle of the park with wingers who actually can play football and want to get forward. If you had Sancho one side and Rashford on the other, that's an exciting prospect for Pogba and Bruno to be able to play balls into, to feed off and just have a go.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think Pogba at his best, at the levels he plays for France, is a terrifying player to play against. And I think in my first podcast, I totally overlooked Bruno Fernandes as an option in the fantasy team. The reason being, at that stage, I thought about, I think he was 10.5 million or something, and I thought that was, for what I was looking to do on my team, was too much for me to put him in over Salah, for example, who I thought would probably be guaranteed goals, assists, that kind of thing. I think we saw a side to Bruno that we didn't see that much last season, because he did get the Fernandes and just kind of set piece masterclass. But we saw, I mean, the third goal, the finish for the third goal was just out of this world. Like, it was so well taken. And if those two are playing on that kind of level, I would worry for anybody coming up against that midfield.
Yeah, I think we have to give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer actually a lot of credit for this in the second half, because Bruno didn't play like that in the first half. But in the second half, Solskjaer's clearly said something to him and said, here's where the weakness is. It's right in the middle of the park. And you notice it more in the second half. Bruno's making those killer runs. Greenwood's not. It makes me feel like Greenwood's going to be another one of those players like Rashford, who should have probably been a striker, but for some reason is a winger. Rashford should never have been put in the wing. Greenwood should also never have been put in the wing, because Greenwood can score goals, but he doesn't play like a striker anymore. Greenwood, he doesn't play like a number 9. He doesn't play like somebody who's going to run in behind. Even the goal that he scored, it's not really a striker's goal. It's a down the wing, cut inside, have a go.
I mean, unbelievable goal, to be fair. Great goal, but absolutely. You're right. It's not a number 9's goal.
No, when he's your number 9, when he's your out-and-out striker in a game and he's making runs like that, that's concerning more than anything. Yes, it's a great goal, but you see a number 9 in Bruno Fernandes in the second half. For his second goal, you have him running through the middle and Pogba playing the ball through. And then for his third goal, Lindelof sticks a cracking ball right through the middle, just like the second one. Arguably the first one as well. Bruno loves that space just to the side of the centre-back. And he goes and he gets a ball, and as soon as he gets the ball, you back him to score, because the centre-back's struggling to get back, and the goalkeeper, no harm to him, is rubbish.
I think it depends, though, on what you're looking for. So Cavani is a great hold-up striker. You can hit the ball up to him and he'll hold the ball up very well. This game was never going to suit that type of player, because it was going to be so open, right? So whilst, yes, Greenwood isn't your traditional number 9 anymore because he's played in the wing, he actually suited this game very well because it required a lot of pace up front. So if you need your striker to move out wide, take the ball, do that sort of thing, I think that this game against Leeds, where it was going to be so open all the time, because Leeds were always going to look to attack, I think that certainly in this game, it actually suited Greenwood. I just want to go back to, you had said earlier about obviously Greenwood not being like the Mbappe levels and stuff. You obviously weren't, like, Mason Greenwood's great, so I just want to be clear that you weren't putting him down, because there might be people being like, oh, blah, 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 all this. Greenwood's a great player. He's, like, especially at his age, he's a fantastic player. But yeah, you're right. I think he should never have been played out wide, because now his style of play up front is very, very different.
It's a tough one, but yes, he's a great player. But if he had always played as a main striker, I think right now I would be looking at a player who is up at the standards of those other young players that I mentioned. Haaland's a through-and-through striker, and he plays like a through-and-through striker. Mbappe could get away with playing the wing striker role because he is so quick, but also because he's playing in a farmer league, so it helps. Whereas Greenwood's playing in the Premier League, the most physical and competitive league that you could play in. And so to flip-flop between those positions is not something that's really possible, because you've actually got fullbacks who can defend and you've got centre-backs who can defend. And so if you're not sure in yourself, then you're not going to do anything against Premier League defenders in that capacity. He's a great player. He can score, and he's touted as being the best finisher at United. I don't doubt that for a second, because when you put him in front of goal, he will score. But I just think he could be levels above if managers in the past had trusted him a little bit more and let him just play as the number 9.
Yeah, I definitely get that for sure. Leeds obviously got a goal. Absolutely stunning strike from Luke Ayling. Just one of those goals where you just have to give him a round of applause and say, fair play, lad. Where you went, you hit it very sweetly. Not much more you can do about it.
Yeah. It must run in the name Luke because that goal was phenomenal. But I think this goal would be a really frustrating one if I was a United fan, because I think this goal has given people freedom to criticise United's defence. But actually, I think United's defence was good in this game. And this goal makes it seem not as good. This goal makes it seem like they conceded. So I've seen on Twitter, people slagging off their defence a little bit. But actually, conceding a goal like this, it's kind of allowed, isn't it? It's kind of allowed to concede a crack. It probably should have been closed down. Yes, you could make that argument. But in general, one lapse of concentration from the defence in a game in which Leeds never really looked like scoring other than this. I don't think there was many big chances that Leeds had. And so, yes, phenomenal goal, but United deserve a little bit more credit than I think online football fans have been giving them for their defence.
Looking statistically at that, when you were talking about their defence, I think this is a really interesting interpretation, or certainly this is my interpretation, and I think that therefore this puts another adds to your claim of them being a great defence. So Leeds had 10 shots yesterday, right? But 7 of them were outside the box, which to me means they felt like they were forced to shoot from further outside the box to try and get any chance of a goal. If you're an attacking team and you're shooting outside the box, defensively, you know you're doing a good job, right? Because you're preventing them from getting into your box and creating chances. A couple of times, United kind of sat off them and almost let them take shots from outside the box, because if you do entice them to do that, how often are you going to score? Like a Luke Ayling shot goes in 1 in every 100 goes and be twice every 100 goes. It's not a common goal. And I think you're so right about defensively, United were very good. And I think that absolutely 100% backs that up. If you're preventing them from getting forward, like even corners, both teams had very little, but Leeds had 4. 4 corners in the game is not very much. So it's not like they were really getting at them that much at all. So
yeah,
100% agree with you there.
Yeah, and I think I'm talking more from experience than anything, because Stoke, when we were in the Premier League, we had a crack in defence, and if you watch best goals compilations of Premier League over the last 10 years, Stoke will be in so many of them being scored against because the defence was so solid. But the main difference that we had was that we couldn't attack, whereas this United team can. This United team are able to sit back and defend well, but then also counter and score goals. And so I think it just resonates a little bit more deeply with me because of that. I'm so used to watching a team that was in the Premier League able to sit back, defend, soak up pressure, no problem. But then when we went to counter-attack, we had Cameron Jerome and Peter Crouch, and no harm to them. They're great players in their time, but they're not quite, the quality of what's needed in the Premier League.
Well, long-time listeners will know of this podcast, we've talked a lot about clinical finishing, about your shots on target rate. And I think we should give a round of applause to Manchester United, because in the second half, they had 4 shots on target and they scored 4 goals. So that's critical if ever I've seen it. They only had 5 shots in that second half. So in the first half, I think they had 10. Let me just double check that. They had 11. So they had 11 shots in the first half and 1 goal, right? And then in the second half, they had 5 shots and 4 goals. I talked briefly there about Leeds crumbling. We saw that kind of where United scored 3 goals in 8 minutes. And that's not a rare occurrence with Leeds. Certainly wasn't last season, where they would, they'd be decent enough for a while, then they'd concede, and then they'd concede like 2 or 3 in quick succession. But is it a case that, yes, Leeds' defence wasn't great, but was United's attack equally as good on the other end?
It was, and I think that's what I was kind of briefly mentioning earlier, is you give Solskjaer that credit because he saw the weakness, and he's sitting at halftime 1-0 up, happy enough, knowing that Leeds haven't really done anything. And United got through a couple of times in the first half through the middle. Pogba missed a chance in the first half in which it was through the middle, and he took it around the keeper and probably should have put it in. It was on his left, so he put it wide. Fernandez's goal was Pogba chipping it through pretty much in the middle of the box, and Fernandes been able to take it and have a go. When they attacked out wide with Dan James, nothing really came to be. Nothing really was happening. And I think Solskjaer must have said to them, here, boys, in the second half, go down the middle, because that's where we're finding luck. And you see that clearly. You see the players making runs in the middle. And so United's defense or attack changed. It altered based on their opponent, like it should. Yep. And they were very impressive to watch because they were picking holes in a defence that had holes to be exploited.
That's it. And, United, we've laughed, and I know I've laughed at United recently in terms of at times they make mistakes and they're a bit of a banter club, right? But I think that was... Obviously, it's only the opening day. I should say that, it's only the opening day. Opening day doesn't really mean a lot, right? It's one game. There's 37 more left. But that's as impressive a United performance as I remember in a while. And I think as a neutral, I'm looking forward to seeing how United do with Sancho and Varane and their team. I think that's an exciting prospect for the neutral to see, because that title race will be superb, and I think that they will be a massive part in that.
Yeah, I think they're linked at the moment with Camavinga from the French league, a player who looks really solid, looks like a good defensive holding midfielder. I don't think Solskjaer would have trust in him to put him in immediately alongside Pogba and Fernandes. I don't think he backs himself enough. I think in this game, Solskjaer knew that Leeds would have a good attack, which is why they went for an extra midfielder in Pogba. Could be that, yes, the weakness was there. Sancho was fit to play. Absolutely. Sancho could have started that game. There's no reason why he couldn't have. Pogba was in so that Fred and McTominay could play the holding role. Solskjaer just doesn't back himself enough, which I don't like, but I would like him to back himself. If they could get Camavinga alongside Pogba, alongside Fernandes, with good wingers and Cavani up top, hello. I think that would be exciting. I think that would be a really good thing to see. And I hope it happens. I hope to see a United team that's competing. I want a four-way race for the title this year.
100%.
I want 4 teams to go to the final day. I want 4 teams to show me that they want to win the Premier League, rather than what we've seen over the last few years of teams just not caring and letting City and Liverpool run away with it. So I'm excited. First day of the season, a great opening day for United. And they've done bits and beaten a Leeds team that probably will finish hopefully 20th.
Just the final point on United in general is, what do they do with Donny van de Beek? Is it the biggest waste of £50 million ever? Because
yes.
I 100% can't believe that they would pay that money for someone that they'll never play.
I think
he has to go. No, there's no way he's making that team at all.
Why not? I would love to see him have a go in place of McTominay. I'd love to see, especially now that Varane's here. Now that Varane's in, I would love to see Pogba and Van der Beek have a go beside each other with Fernandes in front of them, because I think Van der Beek on his day is one of the best midfielders in world football. He showed that at Ajax whenever he's playing in a team that can play football. Maybe that's United's issue. They don't play football like that. They don't play passing football. They play United football, wings and counter-attack type stuff, which they always played. It's what Sir Alex made his whole living on, was good wingers go down to the strikers who can score goals. United have missed that, but they've tried to play it. But I think if United were playing a different style, if Van der Beek had signed for Man City when he signed for Man United, he would be one of the best midfielders in world football right now. I have no doubt about it. If he had joined Barcelona last season alongside Frankie de Jong, he'd be one of the best midfielders in world football right now. United just was not the club that he needed to join, and I feel for him, but I think he needs to get out. He needs to get out soon, even if he goes back to Ajax, even if he goes somewhere that's a step down as such. He needs to just get first-team football, because even for the Netherlands, he's been really good.
Yeah, to clarify, when I was saying he won't get into that team, it was coming from the mindset of, I don't think Solskjaer picks him over Frederick McTominay because he loves Frederick McTominay so much, right? I think he's absolutely good enough to be in that team, but he has not ever been able to prove it at United. He's never been given the opportunity, which annoys me, and I think that he does need to go. I think maybe going back to Ajax is probably one of his best options. I'm not sure the Premier League. I don't think going to a step down club in the Premier League is a great option for him at this moment in time. I think he maybe needs to go away to, maybe back to Ajax where he's comfortable, get another couple of years there, and then maybe make a big money move there. But that's United versus Leeds talked about. We've got about hopefully 15 minutes here. We're going to chat about the rest of the weekend. And I want to start with probably the biggest news of the weekend, and that was not even the result of Sunday's late kickoff, but the fact that Harry Kane was not even in the Tottenham squad. And I want to know from you, what you think that means for his future.
Well, it's just like Jadon Sancho. He's just not fit enough to play. That's what I hear. I really don't know. If I'm the Tottenham manager, I don't pick him either. Even if he's staying, even if he is playing for Spurs, you can't pick him. He's just going to draw attention and distract the other Tottenham players. And I think Nuno pulled an absolute masterclass in not playing him. They won the game. That's because there was no distractions on the pitch. Yep. Harry Kane didn't have to make up his mind in playing football. And so I think City will go in for him. They need him. They need a striker. RIP Gabriel Jesus. He doesn't exist. But they need somebody who can score goals. Kane is that person. If Kane goes to Man City, wow, they've got a phenomenal team. But I don't think Sunday really tells us anything about his future. Daniel Levy is a money man. Daniel Levy doesn't want to let him go. Daniel Levy will, however, let him go if he gets a bid of 160 million.
Yeah.
That's just how Daniel Levy works. So we'll see, but I wouldn't say the writing's on the wall just yet. I want to see what happens. Obviously, Kane wants to leave, but there's so much in world football that can change.
I think Gary Neville made a great point yesterday when he was saying that Harry Kane was the only player from the England squad at the Euros who wasn't starting or on the bench this weekend, which was interesting to me. I don't think it says a lot yet. I think that whole situation, there's clearly stuff going on that none of the public know. There's stuff that's going on with him and Daniel Levy and the club that we're just not really aware of, whether there was a gentleman's agreement in place, which you are contracted, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. But look, if he stays, I think he'll still be super for Spurs. But it wouldn't surprise me if City go in for him and get him. I think that we saw yesterday that they need a striker desperately. They're so lacking up front that it hurts. Now, saying that, they played first 15 minutes. City were just so great to watch, but yeah, whenever people who are writing off Spurs and then they go and beat City 1-0 on the opening day of the season, I posted earlier that that's the first time that City have failed to win on the opening day of the season since 2010. That's a crazy stat when you think about it. That's 10 years they've gone now winning every game. So I think it's really interesting. Fair play to Spurs. City, obviously they weren't great against Leicester last week in the Community Shield. They weren't great again yesterday. So I think maybe a striker's their priority at this stage.
Yeah, credit needs to go to Nuno. Nuno was kind of flagged off for going to Spurs. I think people kind of disregarded him because there was that whole manhunt sort of situation going on at Spurs where they flip-flopped here, there and everywhere to try and find a manager who wanted to come in. A lot of people said then, Nuno's left Wolves here, he's desperate for a job. But actually, I think that's really harsh on Nuno. Nuno did a superb job at Wolves. And here he is managing Tottenham and beating Man City. It was rogue for him to play Ollie Skip. It was random for him to play Tanganga. I kind of expected him to play a back five, but fair play for not playing a back five against Man City and still being able to keep a clean sheet and still coming away with the win. That's phenomenal. I fully expect to see a slightly better defensive performance when Christian Romero comes in as well. I think the sooner Eric Dyer is out of that team, the better. No harm to him. Best thing.
I 100% agree with you as well.
Score a free kick against Russia at the World Cup or something. That was the best thing Eric Dyer's ever done. And then go and scrap with somebody in the stands is his second best moment ever. But
it's good for documentary.
Hugo Lloris played a good game, and I think that's the first in a while that we've seen from him. But yeah, if I'm a Spurs fan, I'm quietly optimistic of being able to push for top four.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quietly optimistic for the if I was a Spurs fan for a potential bit of business happening if Kane leaves and they spend the money well. Spurs could have a good team
Yep.
and have a nice few players. We talked about this kind of towards the end of the season last season, and we were a bit more pessimistic. But having seen what Nuno's been able to do, and Dele Alli looks an inspired man now, and
Yep.
I think especially against the weaker teams in the league, he will absolutely flourish. Heung-min Son has so much to prove and so much to
Mm-hmm.
show that he's not going to play second fiddle anymore, even if Kane stays. And so, yeah, fair play, Spurs.
Mm-hmm. Dele Alli's free from the Jose shackles. That's kind of how I see it, and I hope he does kick on and do well, because it was kind of weird how he just dropped off like that. One week he was in the team, the next week he disappeared. So that's interesting. Other big headlines from the weekend. This is the next biggest one, in my opinion. Arsenal losing 2-0 to Brentford on Friday night, and the negativity and toxicity that surrounds Arsenal at the moment is worrying. And the thing is, when I saw that Arsenal team selected to play against Brentford, well, I knew that the lack of Lacazette and Aubameyang was enforced on them. There's not really much details to why they weren't in the team. Sickness is what I've heard, but when I saw that team, I thought, I think they might lose this game, especially when it's Brentford's first game in the Premier League in front of their fans. There's a level of being inspired by that in front of your home fans and doing a kind of going at 110%. But when I saw the result, it didn't shock me in the slightest.
Yeah, it's a really weird one. I haven't seen this toxicity or negativity in a team since, last season with Stoke. We are so grim. We have been so grim, and I recognise all the same problems. So Michael O'Neill is clearly the answer for Arsenal. But yeah, I looked at the team and I thought, great, love to see youth, love to see that young a team. But when you can't play football because your manager doesn't have a clue what he's doing, it's an issue. And we've discussed this at length before in season 1 of the podcast. Mikel Arteta does not have a clue and shouldn't be anywhere near managing a Premier League football team. Like, I don't care what little Arsenal fans say on Twitter. No matter how much you love him, he's useless. You look at a team that is uninspired. There's only 2 players in that team on Friday night that actually looked like they wanted to win. Kieran Tierney, who will give his heart for any club that he plays for, and Emile Smith-Rowe, who loves Arsenal, and rightly so, because they've been so good to him. Those 2 look good. Martinelli's tired. He's just come back from the Olympics. He's tired. He's starting. Why is Saka not playing? Yes, Saka got slated absolutely after the Euro final. That was a month before Martinelli. Saka should be starting all day, every day before Martinelli should be playing in this game.
100%.
Saka was their best player last season. He was their only reason for hope last season. Saka needs to be playing. Pepe played well at the end of last season. He didn't show anything on Friday. Xhaka got a new contract. Absolutely, he does a job. But him alongside Lokonga doesn't show any excitement, doesn't show any creativity. Those 2 are not creative players alongside each other. And going forward from the back, Callum Chambers, oh my word, how does he play for a team like Arsenal? Like, no harm to Callum Chambers, but he's been there for years. Why is he still on the books at the club?
I know.
Why have they still got Bellerin? Bellerin clearly wants out. Ship all of them out and buy a right back for flip's sake.
Yeah, 100%.
Arsenal infuriate me. Ben White was 50 million. They probably shouldn't have spent that 50 million on him. Should have bought Aouar, who's apparently available for 25. Onana is available for 6, even though he can't play till November. You spent 31 million on 2 players like Aouar and Onana, and come December, you've got more excitement than any of these players have in their little toe. It's shocking from Arsenal, and I think Arsenal fans are getting fed up. Arteta's useless. Edu, the sporting director or whatever he is, he's useless too. The 2 of them together are a disaster, and both of them need out of Arsenal as soon as possible if Arsenal want to do anything anywhere near European football ever again.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Ben White, because I think it's shocking that they've spent 50 million on Ben White and United have spent less than 40 on Raphael Varane.
Well, there's a lot of hidden numbers there, to be fair, because Varane is on so much more money, and the general transfer over the course of their 2 contracts, Varane will be about 40 million more. So that's fair enough. Like there's a more add-ons, and his loyalty bonuses and his sign-on bonuses and his just base wage is like more than triple or something, Ben White's. So I get that, and I get that Ben White is cheaper in the long run. Ben White's great. I do like him. I think he's a good player. He's young though. Yeah. So he's more of a risk. You know, he's playing for Brighton. Maybe Arteta was hoping that with Ben White you get all of Brighton's XG as well, but that just isn't the case. And you need Danny Welbeck, clearly. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Arsenal bring Danny Welbeck back. Well,
do you think it's the similar thing to, like, you know, like City had to pay 100 million to get Grealish away from Villa? Do you think it was the same thing where Arsenal had to pay 50 million to get Ben White away from Brighton? Brighton weren't willing to part with him unless it was an extortionate amount of money for, you know, Ben White isn't worth 50 million. There's no way.
Well, he's English as well. That's the thing.
Yeah, well,
and small teams have seen what's happened in the past. Like Maguire get a ridiculous fee for it. You see Robertson, who went for such a cheap amount. Ever since then, players have been like, "Oh, well, these players could be unbelievable. We should charge more for them." I am just hoping and praying for Arsenal fans that Aaron Ramsdale does not get signed by Arsenal. They're linked with him for 30 million, a relegated goalkeeper. What on earth is going on? I've seen reports now that that's fallen through. And I hope that that is true, because Aaron Ramsdale is not worth 30 million in any world.
Would that be to be a backup keeper?
Potentially, Leno was crap again on Friday night, and he has been crap for a while. It's the defense's fault to some extent, but also he looks nervous. He looks shaky. It's like when I hate to keep bringing up Stoke references, but it's like when Jack Butland was playing for us, and he just lost all his confidence, and he became a liability. And Leno is a liability now for Arsenal. They just need they kind of tried to revamp this year. They've got rid of a few players. I would rather see Lucas Torreira playing midfield for this Arsenal team. Why on earth is he being kicked out? Why is Guendouzi being loaned out and sold or whatever? Like, there's players at this club that Arteta clearly is not taking a liking to, and the board should just get rid of Arteta and bring those players back, because Guendouzi would do much more in this team than half of those players.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for if Ramsdale's coming a second keeper for 30 million, you're better off paying 15 for Carl Darlow, right? You know, great shot stopper. You know, wouldn't be your starting keeper, would probably be a good backup keeper. We saw that in Newcastle. When he stepped up for us, he was unbelievable. He saved us so many points. You know, I'm not even being sarcastic. He actually did. And that brings me nicely on to Newcastle. A team who the negativity around Arsenal is probably matched at Newcastle. I mean, it's sad whenever you go to you're supporting your club and you have absolutely no hope for them whatsoever. You're just like, if we survive, that'll be great. And that's in some ways really sad. And I know that in general, Newcastle are also a very toxic fan base in terms of how they feel towards the club. But at the same time, Mike Ashley's a toxic owner. So it's a two-way street. We've been treated like crap. We treat the club like crap. And I saw a graphic saying that in the time since Mike Ashley's been at Newcastle, Newcastle's net spend has been £0.
And it shows.
Yeah, and it shows. We're a club in regression. We're fighting survival every year. But on Sunday, there was a bit of hope. We scored after 5 minutes with Callum Wilson. We were 2-1 up against West Ham at half-time. Ultimately lost 4-2. But from a Newcastle fan perspective, for me, even scoring 2 goals is a big thing for Newcastle, which is kind of sad. Defensively, both teams were really poor. Having watched back the goals, both West Ham and Newcastle looked rather shaky at the back. But, you know, West Ham get a win. I don't know what we're going to see from West Ham this season. I think Europe's going to have an impact on them. I can't really see them doing what they did last season. But if they can keep up being like a mid-table club, fair play to them. David Moyes doing a good job there. I'll just be interested to see what happens there, to be honest.
This was a tale of two teams that had an on-loan attacking midfielder last season for the second half, and it showed that they were both a bit rubbish. No Lingard makes a big difference in that team. no Lingard just lacks creativity in that team, and no Willock in that Newcastle midfield. Just they lack desire.
Thankfully, that's going to change from next
Absolutely.
week.
Absolutely. But
That's a
Isaac
great signing,
Hayden,
by the way.
how on earth does Isaac Hayden play football every week in the Premier League? No harm to him.
I think he's
What
better than
did
John Joe Shelby.
Yeah, but what do the two of them do? What do either of those players do on a football pitch?
For me, Hayden's a very good defensive midfielder. He gets in tackles. Look. I think he is. I think he's better than you're giving credit
a
for.
back five and Isaac Hayden, you shouldn't concede a single goal ever. Then, when you've got 6 players who are exclusively defensive, because you shouldn't be conceding 4 goals in a game.
No, but you shouldn't be playing John Joe Shelby. I think Hayden's better than Shelby. I think Shelby's a passenger who shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
I also think
there's just a lot of players in that team that are bad.
I'm also of the mindset that a back five encourages pressure on your team, and why would you want to encourage pressure? It does my head in. Especially a back five and 2 defensive midfielders. That's 7 defensive-minded players.
Looking at that back five, it's a back 2.5. Emil Kraft doesn't count as a player. Kieran Clark sometimes shows up, and Matt Ritchie played left wing back. When Matt Ritchie's playing left wing back for you, there's an issue going to happen.
How is Kraft playing and Jamal Lewis isn't? Again, that's something I don't understand either. Jamal Lewis is such an exciting young talent. Get him experience. Get him on the pitch. Get him playing.
Even Shaw, I'd have Shaw in the team.
And Lascelles was on, was he?
No, there's a bit of hope there. If you're playing a back 3 of Lascelles, Fernandez, and Shaw with Jamal Lewis on the left and Jacob Murphy on the right, I'm filled with a lot more confidence than I am with this back 5 that plays.
That's a far better defense.
What's going on there? I thought Woodman looked good. I think Woodman and
fair play. Third keeper.
2 good players to have, Woodman and Darlow, and Dubravka, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, not a bad defense and goalkeeper wise, but it's everything else that's just an issue.
But it's like, if we have this is the thing, if we have Callum Wilson, Saint-Maximin, and Willock all fit, when it goes to going forward, we should be okay, right?
Yeah.
It's that defensive side that I worry about so much.
I would want to see, if I'm you, I want to see Callum Wilson up top, Maximin and Fraser either side, and Willock just behind.
100%.
That's a good 4 going forward.
Wee diamond.
And yeah, absolutely. And you have a solid back 4 of Lascelles and Fernandez with Jamal Lewis. Right back's your issue, probably.
Yeah.
And then somebody in midfield. Who you like Hayden, so play Hayden and somebody else, Almiron. I would be a lot more excited if I was a Newcastle fan by that team than the team that's put out.
I think I would play a back 4 with, I'm trying to work out the maths here if I've making too many players. Back 4 with Hayden sitting, and then Almiron and Willock in front with Fraser, Saint-Maximin, and Callum Wilson. But that's probably too attacking for Newcastle. But that would be my idea.
Have a heart attack.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll see how that season goes. And I just want to finally mention Chelsea. I think Chelsea are going to be scary this season, especially with Lukaku coming in. That's a scary team.
Their squad depth is ridiculous.
Scary.
Marcus Alonso doesn't deserve to be in the team whatsoever, but yet he's in the team and he scores a goal.
Yeah.
He's a decent backup option to have. Ben Chilwell's great. I expect him to come back in. Havertz is in the squad, having played well at the Euros and also played well, obviously scoring the goal in the Champions League final. The squad depth there is just nuts. Pulisic got a goal. And, he probably deserves to start, but who do you start? Who do you drop? Do you drop Werner? But I think he loves Werner, and I think Werner alongside Lukaku is actually quite an exciting option to have.
Yeah.
So maybe you play Werner, Lukaku, and Pulisic. But then, Havertz, Ziyech. What do you do with all these players?
I know they've got almost too many players at this stage. It's just, do you have to ship someone off?
And I left out Mason Mount, who was the most capped player for Chelsea all of last season.
Yeah, you did leave out Mason Mount. It's a scary team who are probably lacking maybe more so at centre back than they are anywhere else. But I'm saying that in that they've got like 4 players every position apart from centre back. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of
To
the
be fair, they've got like 6 at centre back. It's just because they play back 3. That's really the only issue. Flipping Thiago Silva played for the under-23s the other day against Haymouth and scored one, and they won 13-0. Like only Chelsea can do that. And this Chalobah boy looks good. You know, he scored a goal defensively. He looks grand. They've talk of Rudiger potentially leaving. If I was a Chelsea fan, couldn't care less. Get rid of him. Absolutely. If he wants out, get rid of him. Get players who want to play. Christensen's a great player. And you've just got good options. They want to get Koundé, obviously. You've still got Zuma at the club, who scores goals for fun when he's allowed to. Who knows? Chelsea are terrifying. I fully expect them to run City right to the wire.
What were your thoughts on me putting Chelsea first and City second?
It's bold, but actually, as things stand currently, fair enough. Thomas Tuchel has done an unbelievable job since he's come in. And City are starting to stale a little bit at times. They showed it in the Champions League final when you don't have a striker. They showed it, against Tottenham when you don't have a striker. I think it's fair enough. It's bold, yes, but also nobody these days likes to retain the Premier League title. So why would City?
Fair. That'll do us. Great episode. I'm looking forward to doing this format more. I think it works really well as a show for us to kind of dive into so many different topics. Obviously, it's a reasonably big week next week. I think Chelsea play Arsenal, don't they? So the big games keep coming, and hopefully as the league progresses, we can watch as it changes and divulges. I never look at the league table until match day 10, and whenever that does happen, we will give you league updates and let you know where things stand at the minute. It doesn't matter. I did notice, however, that we didn't have a single draw this week, which is interesting. So you're either on 3 points or you're on 0 points. Luke, thank you very much. Great show.
My pleasure. Thank you. I can't wait to be back next week to talk about Palace Brentford. It'll be a good day.
What a game. What a game. And guys, thank you very much for listening /watching. We love you. You're all legends. Bye.